And I'm doing the Zoom API connection to YouTube. And we're redirecting it to YouTube. And it's working fine. You should have on your screen, you should have seen the meeting is being live streamed, so I got it. Okay, so I have that part. Okay, everyone's cameras then are set up. And then I'll do Loom as well. And Loom, then Isabella, Loom is my recording system. So it's going to be, I'm recording Loom as another cloud system, right? And I'll start recording Loom. I got the educational version, so I have unlimited where Loom can be 5 minutes of 25 videos. So I know Loom is working, I'm ready to go. And I have everyone coming online. And Pavel, do you have a camera there? Okay, so let me share my screen. So I can share my screen. And I'll look at what's due just to make sure that everybody is clear on what's due for this Wednesday. And this Wednesday is 2 parts, one on automated trading systems and one on data. On the data, it's reading from the chapter Rayner, chapter 5, the adaptive assignment, the quiz on chapter 5 found under assignments and quizzes, the PowerPoints of the Rayner, and also I'll be talking about automated trading systems. I'll do an introduction. On Wednesday, I'll spend time on automated trading systems. Today, I'll spend time on data and database management systems and data governance. I give you 2 articles to read also for Wednesday. One is on basic algorithmic trading, kind of to get an overview, and one on examples for that. And what is basically understanding these questions is we'll go over what is automated trading systems and what are the pros and cons of that. Okay. The PowerPoints we talked about before are located under the 9th editions of PowerPoints. And then you can download that data management, that chapter, and also this automated trading system. Sometimes we call it algo for algorithmic trading. Okay. Any questions that I need to do? Let me stop sharing here. And then we have James coming in. And Spencer, can you be can I volunteer you to just look over the chat if there's any chat questions? Spencer, if you can look at anything that I need to look at. And can you stay for a minute after class with me, Spencer? Do you mind? Good. So stay with me, Spencer. And then this way, we'll work it out. Okay. So I think we have everybody, most people on board, otherwise, and we're recording. Okay, so we're going to be talking about data today. And if I think about the class, data is important. For what reason? Data is important that I can make decisions on data. I can forecast what's going to be in the future in data. I can look at the past and see how well I've done with data. I can look for patterns in data. And everybody's heard about generative AI. And Colin, have you ever used ChatGPT or something like it?
A couple times, yeah.
A couple of times. And what did you do? You prompted it, and what happened?
It just answers the question for you.
Right, it answers the question. And basically, how it does it is in a predictive manner. It basically is not that smart, even though they say like intelligent. It's basically forecasting what is the next word, or basically it can rewrite for you anything. It's basically trying to forecast. And how does it do it? By training via data. So that is why it's very important for me to go over that we understand the terms and understand the importance of data here. So if I now go ahead, let me share my screen. And if I look at my, you can see my screen. Let me go to my PowerPoint. Let me go to the very top here. If I think about data, I think about challenges in managing that data and what we call data governance. In this case, Drake, the challenges of managing data addressed using data governance is we have, let's think we're at the university, Drake. You with me, Drake? We're at the university. And your role at the university is what? Drake?
Student.
Student. And do you need access to any data at the university? Your role as a student, do you need any data?
No.
To do, well, let's think about it, to do your work. How did you get into this class, Drake? And how, did you register for classes?
Yes.
Did you need to know what classes were available?
Yeah, and how many people are in them and all that.
Right, and you needed to know what else. Was there a waiting list on some classes, sometimes not, Drake, right? What else
Yeah.
did you need to know? You needed to know basically if you, basically which professors, let's say you wanted to have certain professors, you wanted to have certain times, right? Did you ever go to the health center, Drake, here?
Yeah, a few times last year, actually.
Few times last year. What did you have to do? You had to make what? An appointment, right? So in that case, you needed, and did they give you, do you have like a health record at the university, Drake?
Yeah, it's on My U Health or something like
My
that.
U Health chart. Is that data that you need to know about yourself? Of course. Do I have access to your data on the health? No. Do I need to know about your health? No. But a lot of times what I've had students do is they've done what? They've gone ahead when they're really not feeling well, and they'll send me a note and say, you know, Dr. Rush, I'm really, you know, I have COVID, or I have a strep throat, or I have any other types of things. Can I not show my camera today, Drake, right? And let me get my data and I'll share with you. They allow me, because they're the owner of the data, they allow me to see parts of their data. So you see that? So you are basically in charge of it. Do you ever think about, does the university have your address, right? When you move, right, you have to tell them that you move, right? You have to give them their data. So even you think about that role, I have a role of my data, right? As an instructor, I have, and you have roles of what? Can you see your grades? You can see your grades in classes, right, Drake? So that's data that you have permission to see. So even though you say, oh, I don't need any data, you're using data all the time, right? Of what's important to you and what you're allowed to see. I, as an instructor, and you remember we talked about it, what was that term that we talked about of, and we'll go over it again, is you see my notepad here, Drake? Need to know. Role to access and manipulate data, the need to know. To do what? To do your job. I need to have access, Drake, to all of my students' data in my class. So I need to know in order to give you grades for the grades you earned. So that is the need. And then we got to figure out then when we're thinking about it is the idea in this chapter outline is how do we manage, Drake, all that data? And think about it. If I think about it, Ryan, my managing data just for this class is a lot of data, right? But think about for the university. We all know the university, think about it. The university has to keep data not on one student, but in thousands of students. Do they have any other people they, Ryan, they have to keep in touch with besides who else? Who else? Besides students? Does the university have to
maybe like other teachers or something?
Okay, faculty, right? All the faculty. And there's certain types of faculty in different ways. There's tenured track faculty, there's adjunct faculty. Is that all? There's all the staff, right? Who else do they need to keep up in terms of, they even of their outside vendors, right? Of who's basically in terms of vendors, for instance, who runs the bookstore, maybe not even employees. The medical center, all their doctors, all their nurses. Think about that. And then in cases, do they keep track? Ryan, what else do they keep track of? Just your data, the university, okay? They keep track of your grades. What else do they keep track of?
Maybe like medical information.
Your in the health center, they keep all your medical. Think about all that. It's enormous. Is that it? What do you think?
Contact information.
The what?
Contact information.
Contact information, right? Your registrar, all your grades. Do you think they keep track of financial information?
Definitely.
Definitely. They want to know if you owe them money, right? Or how much or what scholarships you get. If you're part of a team in sports, they want to keep track. So you can think about, even after you graduate, do you think they still keep track of you? What do you think?
Yeah.
For what purpose? What do they care? You're not giving them, you're not a student anymore. What do they want?
Just to see how you are like doing.
One is to see how you're doing, and two, maybe to be the alumni, maybe to be an active alumni, and maybe to, if you succeed, what do we hope? That you come back to the university, right? You contribute to the university.
Yeah, you could like bring recognition to the university.
Yeah, and you maybe
Accomplishments.
afterwards, you may recommend others to come to the university. And then when after a number of years, you may even send your children to the university, right? You may give endowments. So these are ways in which we have to manage data, and there are problems. And you see in our case, there's always problems, right? When we deal with technology, well, it's going to even be more so when we're going to have that technology. So when we think about it, managing data becomes very difficult because who's in charge? So Isabella, when I even think about who's in charge of the data, for your data, for all your grades, who's going to be in charge of that? That's going to be difficult to even do that. Who's going to decide what gets put into what data the university collects? Do you think the university even collects data of non-students? Isabella, can you think of a time where the university collects data of non-students?
Maybe when they're recruiting, like
When
freshmen
they're
in high
recruiting,
school.
right? When people apply, or even when they find out people are maybe interested, there may be even just a section of recruiting. Think about, and they may want to do what? They want to be able to figure out what to do. So one of the things that we need to be ensured is we have something called data governance. Data governance, and you can put this in your notes here, is important because it gives the rules, regulations, procedures on who takes care of the data. Do you think in this case, Lena, that data should be backed up? There should be a backup of data? What do you think, Lena?
Yeah, like it's always good to have like a second
Or maybe third backup. Why? Because maybe we may not be online, maybe a hard drive crashes, right? You see, we have a number of different problems. So you say, okay, our data needs to be backed up. That's great. But what? Our data, who's going to back it up? Who's going to check if the backup works? So all of this is data governance. So you need to tell people in this data governance is who's in charge of the data. And there may be a group of people that are in charge of the data. Later on, we may use for recruitment, right? We want to be able to forecast who are the most likely to come to the university, who are the most likely to succeed in the university, who are the most successful, who most likely will really enjoy the environment of this university versus another. There's certain characteristics of certain people that really enjoy it, who would be best. And it may be in the data governance, there may be your piece of data may be governed by a number of different people in the organization. So for instance, if I think about it, Spencer, you're an accounting major, the accounting department has your data, right? The School of Business has your data, right? And it basically will be the university has your data. So they'll all, maybe the registrar has your data, admissions has your data. Are you in any organizations, Spencer?
yeah, I'm in a sorority.
You're in a sorority, so the sorority has your data. So you see here how even the same type of data is there. So this is what we're going to be used by when we think about data governance, who's going to be charged. So we think about the idea, what are the difficulties in managing data? And these are kind of questions people were asking me before about the test. We're going to have the test in person, and we'll have part of the test will be multiple choice and part of the test will be open-ended. We'll be doing a review, and that's on Monday, October 9th. And it'll be in the School of Business in the SBA 204 lab. We'll go into this. But one of the questions will be, what are the difficulties of managing data? And we have in the slide, it says data increases exponentially with time. Of course, think about data in this case. If I think about it, Nicolette, if I think about the stock market data, do I have like one, and we think about a company like Microsoft, does it have just one data point per day?
No,
Well, how many data points could it have?
millions. It depends on what you're looking at.
Right, it can be per minute, per second. It may change, right? It may be just end of day. And if I think about 5 years, 10 years. So as time goes on, Nicolette, you can see that data increases exponentially with time. And you think about even the longer you are at the university, your data is going to be increasing. You can get, for instance, if we think about just the university, there could be multiple sources of data. Do you think in this case, Nicolette, the university would be interested in what other universities are doing?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Why? I love that confidence.
Just to
Why?
learn from them and to see like if they're keeping up with what's going on in the world, then we should as well.
Are they our competitor? Just like if you were running a company, right? If I were a company and I was GM, do I want to know what Ford's doing? Do I want to know what Toyota's coming out? What model Porsche is coming out? What model even what are the Chinese coming out with? Of course. So the university also has multiple sources of data. It may have data that's also even economic data, seeing what is what are students now still wanting to go for 4-year degrees. New sources of data, maybe in social media now. I may want to check then social media. Is social media saying about the University of Miami, universities in general, and they have even their peers, what they're doing. So you can think about it. I got multiple sources, I increase in time, I got new sources, and now what I have in this part, which is interesting, is I have something called data rot or data degradation. Data rot or data degradation. So Taylor, you got any idea what data rot means? You know what rot means, like rotten food. Taylor, you got that idea?
Yeah, is it like data that's like bad or like not good anymore?
Data bad, that it's not useful anymore, that may be inaccurate, that may be put in incorrectly. They may have my wrong address. They may have my wrong demographics. That's what they call data rot, meaning that it isn't, it doesn't have integrity. It means I can't rely on that data. Data degradation through time, it hasn't been updated. And then of course, there's data security. Once I store something, I have to secure that data. Sometimes I have to secure it because of regulations. For instance, there's regulations called HIPAA, the Health Information Portability Act, that requires in the United States that health data is secure. That the university just doesn't, if I have a disease, right? I was just diagnosed with a disease, the university doesn't have a right to put that out and share that with other people if I don't give them permission. That's why a lot of times I cannot just, you have to decide whether you want to share your data. If you've been sick, some students have COVID, the university will not tell me which of my students have COVID. You have to set that up. So I have to make sure that the data is secure. Do you think your grades need to be secure? Of course. Do you think your credit card information needs to be secure? Yes. So the university and any other organization has to worry about securing that data. And do companies get hacked? Do universities get hacked? Universities get hacked all the time. A lot of times, universities don't even like to tell us. Some states like California require, if companies get hacked, they have to tell their end users. I have to worry about the quality of my data. And I have to worry about the integrity. Can I rely on that data? Is that data correct? If I'm trading on the stock market, I have to make sure that I have quality, integrity. And if I'm trading stocks, I have to make sure that my accounts are secure. And many times I have government regulations. There's education government regulations that don't allow, for instance, universities to share their student data with anyone. There's times in which there's banking regulations. There's a number of regulations now. And guess what? In the process of artificial intelligence, a number of companies saying, hey, the government needs to regulate that too. The data, what data are they taking from me? What surveillance data you're taking from me? Remember, people are complaining about, hey, am I being watched? What are you doing with my data? We freely give our data, but we don't even know what they're doing with our data. Think about it. How much does, in this case, Priscilla, how much does Gmail cost you?
Nothing.
Nothing. Are you on Instagram, Priscilla?
Yeah, I am.
How much does it cost you?
Nothing.
Nothing. Are you sharing data with them?
Yeah.
Right. You're sharing data with Google. You're sharing data with Meta or Facebook, right? And guess what? It's basically, and that's the case. You're sharing it. What are they doing with all that data? And what are the government regulations? A lot of times it's not. So you think about, this is what you need to know is, what are the multiple sources of my data? What happens to the multiple sources of my data? Some are coming internally. So let's think about the university. The university, it's coming internally by what? My student databases, my vendor databases, right? What do they have? They have internal sources, for instance, Zoom, right? They have to buy accounting systems. They have to buy payroll systems. They're getting internal sources from other, basically internally from the grades, from the faculty. What publications are the faculty doing? What presentations are the faculty doing? In the internal sources, where are they getting their extra monies, their revenues from students, but also from donors, from the government, from our government projects that we do, from our research projects. The government, other companies give us money in order to do resources. It may be multiple sources, may be individual. They do surveys. How satisfied are students? How satisfied are students in evaluations of their faculty, in terms of their, possibly of their dorms, of the situations, of entertainment that the university gives? And external. And external, it's like we need to have government reports, basically in the way of my competitors. Also the job market. I was just told, Dylan just told me there's a career fair this Wednesday. And I was telling Dylan, and I can tell all of you, is when you go around, ask them about their technology. What are they doing, for instance, in their AI? And then you can even say, hey, can you contact my instructor? We'd like maybe you guys to come in for a 10-minute presentation and hear about what you're doing with new technology. So those are multiple sources. And then we think about data governance. We talked about it before, but data governance is an approach in which you manage that information across the entire organization. Think about it. It's not just I have to manage my data from this class, but guess what? We have to manage the data from, we have now 2 senses, right? We have the audit area, which you have a different role to. We have to manage that. We have to do it in not only for my class, but for my department, for the School of Business, for the entire school. We have to do it across the entire organization. We have the law school, we have the medical school, we have arts and sciences, we have communications, we have Rasmus. I have the actual medical school, then I have the hospital. All of this has to be an entire approach of how do we collect the data? How do we handle the data? How do we protect the data? Who protects it? Just to say, oh, it's protected, what is that going to help us? It's not going to help us. And then we have to think about that master approach of how we're going to manage the data. Data. And how we do it is something called the data hierarchy. And you kind of know a little bit about the data hierarchy before. So let me just give you an example. Let's go to the audit area. And if I go to the audit area, I have a section in the audit area called users and groups. And if I go to users, what do I see here, Franco? You see that, Franco? What do I see? I see username, first name, last name, email, the role, and if it's available. Do you see that, Franco?
Yes, I do.
This is data. And if I look at this data, I could move this data into, it looks like a spreadsheet, right? You know what a spreadsheet is, right, Franco?
Yes.
So you have basically, you have columns here, and the columns here, you can think about a column is like a field. Sometimes a column in a spreadsheet is a field in database terms. So I have username, first name, last name, email, and role. And in this case, since we're in the audit area, Franco, everybody got the role of what?
Teaching assistant.
And in the other section that we have, the regular section, what was your role, Franco?
I don't remember.
What do you think?
Student.
Student, of course, you remember. Now notice we have Rachel here. Is Rachel here? She may have dropped. Oh, I know what it is. Notice here we have Rachel here. We have one is teaching assistant and one is student role. We were trying to work it out and somebody was taking it. And then if we go down, we can see here, we can look at show all. And you can see everyone in the class with teaching assistant, except one role here, and that's a row. In database terms, a row is called a record. In database terms, a field is a column. In database form, a record is a row. So there's one record here, and this person is instructor. So if I go back to my PowerPoint and I think about the idea of my database, I want to keep my database management system not to have, there's three problems that I want to minimize. And one is data redundancy. So let's think about it, Gabriel. Who has your name and your address and your phone? Is there only one person or one entity in the university that has your name, address, and phone? Gabriel, what do you think? Who has your name, address, and phone?
Admissions.
Admissions, who else? What department are you in?
Finance, business.
You're in the business school. Do you think they have your name, address, and phone?
Yeah.
And do you think, and you're in the finance department? You're a finance major? Yes?
That's yeah.
They have it. Does the registrar have it?
Probably, yeah.
Probably. So is there a problem with data to have data redundancy? You know what data redundancy mean? More than one time the data.
Hmm.
What's the problem with that? Who cares? One, it takes up room. Two, what else is the problem? If I moved, one entity may have my one address, another entity may have my other address. So what I want to minimize in data management systems is reduce the redundancy and have my data, part of my data that gets repeated, have it stored in one place and have different entities access it at one place. Another problem is what we call data isolation. For instance, if Dylan, I was looking for a student that maybe is interested in data analytics, interested in sports, and is on a sports team, and they come to me, Dr. Rush, to ask who can I recommend. If the data is isolated, let's say in the sports team and data analytics, I don't even know what are who I can't access data analytics students, because let's say I'm not a professor of data analytics, that data is isolated. Do you understand? So what you want to make sure is that data that's needed can be retrieved from different people in the organization. Because right now, data analytics majors are stored maybe in the data analytics department or maybe in the School of Business. But me as an instructor, as a professor, doesn't have, all I have access is to my students, and maybe I can ask my assistant who are the business technology students, right? But I don't have access even in the database of that. And then you have a problem, Dylan, you see, of data inconsistency. If I can't rely on my data, if it's stored many times, your addresses, or in this case, other things about data, maybe a faculty that I got promoted or I moved or any other thing here, I have to ensure data inconsistency. And what's the problem? That's going back, this data inconsistency may be based on data governance. Because if I cannot rely on the data, Dylan, then my forecasts are going to be incorrect. If I cannot access my data that's needed, then I'm going to have issues. Do you understand that? So this is why I want to minimize this. I don't want data redundancy because I don't want it too many times that I will get problems having the same data. I will get errors. I don't want to be isolated that only certain people in the organization can get it. And of course, I don't want it to be inconsistent. What I do want to maximize is this. I want it to be secure. I want to be able to rely on it. And I want it to be independent so I can rely on it. So if I look at this figure of a database management system, you can even see, here's the registrar's office, right? So if I looked at this, this is the registrar's office. This going both ways. I have my course listings, the course enrollment, the student. Somebody has to be in charge of that. The accounting department, right? This tuition data, the fee. And here the accounting department is not in the business school, the accounting department, but rather the payment in the account, the financial department that takes care of all the revenues of the university. And then here's the athletic departments. And notice here, here's the student athlete. So here, in this case, I'm able, notice that all these arrows have to be going together so we can, a number of different users can access it. And it can be put in one time rather than several times. So what they're trying to do, Dylan, is minimize the number of times we put in redundant information. I don't need to put in your C number a million times. If I can put them in one area, then I can retrieve that, and then I can copy that data. Sometimes it's not done as well, but the problem is, so I'm able to do it. So going back to my spreadsheet that I was talking about, the data hierarchy goes like this. You need to know this. The smallest data, computers are in reality not intelligent. And basically the way we can set up with computer data is just zeros and ones. And if I think about those zeros and ones, and we put those together, the smallest unit of data in the computer is what we call a bit. It's a 0 or a 1. So Spencer, a byte is just a character. So a byte is then, when we think about it, 8 bits. And basically a byte is, if I looked at Spencer, then the S is 8, in this case, 8 bits. And there's a certain pattern that creates an S versus a P versus an E. And a field in a database is just a column. So Spencer, if you think about that database, you think about our user database of our audit area, the first field we had was what? The C number. Then we had last name, first name. You remember that email? They're all called fields. You know this, Spencer, right? It's just another term they use. And basically, why is that important? Because you need to, later on, we'll talk about it. There's certain fields that you want to have it be unique so we can find it. So if I go back to having a unique field, and I go back to here, how many, in this case then, Nicole, how many fields do I have in this database? 1 username, 2 first name, 3 last name, 4 email, 5 roles, and this observer, I guess, available is 6. Let's say we have 6 fields. And what's important, if I want to find a specific user, you're on a roll, Nicole. If I want to find a specific user, what field should I use? This is a good test question. If I want to find a specific user in a database, and think of it this as like a database, what field would I use given this data?
Username.
Perfect. Because why? You got it, Nicole.
Because it's specific.
You got the keys to the Mercedes. It's unique. Right? Nicole, it's unique. Why wouldn't, in this case, why wouldn't first name, Nicole, be unique? Why wouldn't that be?
People can have the same first name.
Right. Also, probably email could be used too, but in this case, it's better maybe a couple people sharing the same, but definitely they've given it. And why are they using username here rather than Social Security at the university?
Social Security is more private. Like, not a lot of people should know your Social Security number.
Plus what else? Yes. Plus what, and it's on, who cares about your C number right now? You're not going to be using it to gain a lot of access. What else? What if you think everybody in the world has a Social Security number?
No.
No. Do we have people that are not, possibly don't have Social Security numbers that come to the university?
Yes.
Yeah. So they say, hey, let's make something unique for us. And there may be even, we can look for a pattern. So you can see already, isn't that nice? You can see that already we can think about it. Is that what we just looked at was a data file or table? that user, when we typed in when we pressed users for our audit area, we got a data file. And a number of data files together, guess what? Make up a database. So if I look at this part, the university has a database, and then I can have this file. I can have a record. And what did I say a record was? Do you remember, Catherine? I said, if I looked at a table or I looked at a sheet in Excel, I would say the columns are what? Are fields. What are the rows called? Records. So, Catherine, the rows are called records. The columns are called fields. And a character is a byte. And if I wanted to go lower, a byte is a bit. And so the combination here is I can have a student, and then they show me these students. I can have faculty, and I have it like this. And a relational database basically is the idea that I have, what's important here is I have a primary key. And that primary key is a way, an attribute, put it in your notes here, an attribute is a field or a column. And a primary key is a column that is unique, that doesn't repeat, like the C number, like the social security number. And a foreign or a secondary key would be another column, but wasn't unique to find something. So you can see here the common thing. Hey, doesn't this what we just talked about? These, the column right here are my field: student name, student ID, major, GPA, and graduate. And if I had to ask you, James Anthony, what would be my primary key, you would say what? My primary key, my unique key, would it be student name? We could give like a quiz. Would it be student name, student ID, major, GPE, or graduation? What's unique?
Your student ID.
Student ID. Everything is easy when you know it, right, James? So, and the thing is who cares? Who cares is that if I want to find you in a database, James, I bet there could be more than one James Anthony. And even your last name could be, maybe you're unique here at the university, but we can't, but you know, another name may not be. And then once I have data, what is really important in data analytics, when people are struggling, when I think about social media, when I think about video, when I think about all the ways that we can get data, is the idea of big data. Big data is in a way that we want to forecast and find patterns. Big data is a way where we're going to be able to use it in many, many different functional areas, from marketing to accounting to finance. So when I think about big data, I think about big data as being diverse, high volume, high velocity, meaning it goes fast, that requires new forms of processing to enable for what? What's the purpose? To analyze it, right, Dylan? Is the idea to do enhanced decision-making, to get some insight, to be able to have optimization for my processing. My big data, so you think about it, what's an example of big data? The stock market, right? Why? Because is it high volume? Of course. Can it be from diverse streams, of course. Does it come quickly? I can blink my eyes and I can get millions of data points. Let alone it's going to be that high value. But if I could process it well, I could make decisions on whether I could buy something, sell it, keep it, don't invest, get some insight on where we should be going. So what's important here on that data is that I can have structured data. What's structured data? Just like I had that user database. You remember in my user database, it was very structured. Username, first name, last name, your role, your email. That's very structured. What's unstructured? Video. When I'm right now recording to the cloud, and I would want some generative artificial intelligence to analyze my video, that is unstructured data. That's going to be difficult to do, but wouldn't that be great in terms of summarizing? Nobody needs to hear 100% maybe of all those hours, maybe of the top 5 minutes that are most crucial. Sometimes what we're going to be able to do is this is where everything is going in terms of pictures, in terms of video, finding videos. That's where it's going. And big data, we can think about, we can generate it, of course, social ways, think about all my digital ways, security cameras, how all the securities are there. We want to find somebody quickly on a security camera. We don't want to go back and figure out, you remember that guy in Pennsylvania? Everybody hear about him? He was on the loose. Where is he? So you know then that volume, velocity, and variety are characteristics of the big data. And of course, the issues are some of the things that we have with regular data. I don't know where the data sources come from. Big data is dirty. It means that maybe it's incomplete. Dirty means that maybe I can't rely on it. And I got to figure out, how do I manage it? Have you ever heard of this, Dylan? No SQL?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so basically, we always talk about SQL, means structured query language. Guess what? A lot of data is not structured. If I think about video, it's not structured. So now what they're going to come up with is another version of how am I going to look at databases that are not structured. Of course, it's even difficult enough structured. A lot of the generative AI will help you with structured SQL. Then it'll be interesting of the non-structured. And open source solutions, meaning they're going to be coming from free sources that are open source that are just inundating me with data. So basically what I need to do with my data is to segment it, to create data that I can experiment with. And the way that I can experiment with, and I can use data, of course, in any functional information, but this is a key that you need to know. We talk about data warehouses and data marts. Basically, data, and this you can put in your notes, data warehouses and data marts deal with historical data. Did you hear that, Catherine? We're dealing with historical data rather than real-time data. Real-time data I use in my inventory. I want to see how many cars do I have on the lot? Or in this case, do I even in real-time data is how many seats are available in this class when we're registering? You understand, Catherine? This is real-time data. Data warehouse and data marts are dealing with historical data. So it could be our basically data that we want to experiment with. And Catherine, remind me, what major are you?
business analytics.
Business analytics, it's classic. We have hypothesis, Catherine, that we're going to be doing, and we want to make sure, let's say the university comes to you and say, we want to find out who are what courses would do our students get take that gets them the highest paying jobs. That's our hypothesis. We want to say not only what major, but what courses get the highest paying jobs when they take. Well, we don't want to start off with the present. What we want to do is we want to take then, Catherine, historical data, basically that data that we've had in the past and store it and put it into what we call a data warehouse. And what is a data warehouse? It's not a real physical warehouse, but it's a data management system that's stored separately than my live data. And a data mart is a subset of that. So for instance, it may be on a marketing segment where we may even say, oh, we want to set up, Catherine, we want to set up a new major, a new AI major, a major in artificial intelligence and data analytics. So we may want to see then what is the demand among students and what is the demand among employers. We set up a data mart inside a data warehouse. So a data warehouse is a way where we're going to store that historical data. It's going to be organized by subject. So in this case, it may be, let's say, data analytics, business technology to support decision makers in an organization. Maybe we say, hey, we need to combine business technology, Catherine, with data analytics and add an AI major together. And a data mart is basically a scaled down version of a data warehouse in a smaller environment. Basically, we're going to do like a small marketing study of a data warehouse. So the characteristics of a data warehouse is that we're going to look at a number of dimensions, or you can think about a number of fields. Remember, we talked about those fields or the columns, and we use what we call online analytic processing. So, Catherine, have you ever used pivot tables in Excel?
Yeah, I did in business analytics last semester.
Okay, that's online analytic processing. And it has to be then integrated. The time variant, time is going to be important. It's non-volatile. And it could be multidimensional. We could have a number of different variables that we consider. So we can think about that idea of a warehouse environment is that we want to integrate our data. We want to store our data in a reasonable fashion, secure. And we have something called, Catherine, metadata. Metadata describes the data. Metadata is not the data itself, but metadata may be a way to think about metadata may be in our student ID, always starts with the letter C and has 10 digits, let's say. Metadata just describes what our data is going to look like for that field. Do you understand that, Catherine? Rather than my actual data, maybe C 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I want to ensure that there's data quality, because if we're going to do our study, Catherine, and we don't have, we can't, it's not quality. Some of them, maybe some of our students, we want to look at some of our students who would, we want to maybe do a master's degree, or we want to do an online degree. We want to be able, and maybe a date of birth was left out. Some have date of birth, some don't. We want to figure out who, what age group. We have to have a course who's going to take care of the data in the data warehouse. And what rules are they, and who are my users? And then in this picture here, Catherine, it looks like a lot of pictures, but these circular, this like a cylinder here, right here, these, you see how they're all kind of like cylinders here? You see this? Where I'm talking about, Catherine? Those are all pictures of databases. This is how they draw a database. So when you see this right here, this is a database. Look, these are my sources. These are all coming from different ways. And then what they do is they take their data and then they call it extraction, transformation, and load. It means that I clean up my data because I need to clean up my data, making sure there's no missing fields, to make sure that everything is in the same format. You see here my metadata. This describes my data. This is my entire enterprise data. And then guess what? Look at this, Catherine. You see the data mart? What's the difference in size? Is the data mart smaller than the enterprise? Catherine?
Yeah, it's smaller.
It's smaller because it's a data mart is like a subset of a warehouse. So we're going to say with all that data, we're going to do, maybe we're going to look at, and then marketing, the marketing department might say, maybe we should do a marketing AI program. Maybe we should just do that. Or data analytics for marketing. Your data analytics, maybe Dylan's interested in data analytics for sports. Do you have a special interest, Catherine, for data analytics?
Not really. I mean, sports analytics is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So there maybe have a department or a track on sports analytics. Let's see it. Let's investigate it. Let's say you want to say, let's see if there's a marketplace for it. Let's say if there's enough jobs, Catherine, for sports analytics. When we did that, that would be a data mart out of all of, let's say, the enterprise, the School of Business's data. Do you understand? From all the departments, we'll do like a data mart. And then they'll be able to do it. Then we'll customize it and get it through the web browser. So what's involved in this afterwards is what they call relational databases. And you can see it. It just looks like what? Spreadsheets, doesn't it? One table versus the second table and the other ones. And then we combine them basically into cubes, which means that we talk about a number of dimensions. And that's it. Let me see what else is important here. And when we think about then, we're not going to do much on relational, but what they use in relational there is they use a special language to query it. Find me all those majors that are female, have GPAs over 3.5 and are interested in internships and are juniors. And the major one is SQL structured query language. So let me stop sharing for a moment. So we have back to it, then we come back. Okay, questions? Seb, did that make sense? So we got it. And Francisco? Okay. So on Wednesday, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take that data. You remember how we talked about big data? And I want to use an example of big data to think about the stock market. And Franco, you see that I want to take that big data. What's better than big data is all the data that's coming from the stock market and saying, well, then how do we analyze data? And how do we get automation there that we don't want to be doing each separate task. We want the computer to be able to analyze it and automate it. And hopefully later on, we're going to even inject then artificial intelligence that it can do part of the forecasting for us and will be a co-pilot with us. What do you think, Franco? Did that help?
Yeah, it helped a lot. I think
So
that
I took your feedback, Franco.
amazing, amazing.
So you can see that we work together. Franco gave a suggestion to me that I should spend more time on lecturing on the Wiley book to make it clearer. So if you have any other suggestions, please, I told Franco that he gets extra credit for that, for class participation, for giving me feedback. Right, so we'll be able to see how we can adjust, because the feedback, when you get it at the end of the semester, what good is it going to be doing for you and for me? Okay, so so our next part, so what I'd like you to do to prepare for our next session is download that other PowerPoint that I sent to you and the articles, and then we'll start looking at the fundamentals of that. And then next week, we'll possibly then start analyzing that data and doing another exercise of analyzing, taking what we learned about a database, and now let's put it to have a real skill at it and get a feel for what does it mean to analyze data rather than just read about it. Questions? Next Monday, we will not have formal class. It's Yom Kippur, so we're a Jewish holiday, so we won't have formal class on Monday, but we'll resume on the following week. So we'll have one day next week, and then we will we need to take attendance, right? And stay with me after class if you have any questions. Okay, so we'll be able, I'd like everybody to finish up the homework for Wednesday, so then we can I can proceed on that. Okay, so let me share my screen. And I need to go to my other section, right? I need to go to attendance, which is another module, loading your course. I need to start check-in. And the key today is 5040, 5040. Once you check in and you have attendance, you can check it. I'll see you on Wednesday. Stay with me if you have additional questions. And Franco, again, thank you very much for the feedback.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good day.
Good day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Professor, I just have a quick question. You
Sure.
mentioned when's the test again?
October 9th.
October 9th. Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Remind me, Mohammed, do me a favor, remind me on Wednesday again, because people
Okay.
forget. And
Okay.
also, it's in class. So some people say, oh, I'll take a trip, I'll go somewhere, since everything is online. Our exams are in person.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
So can you be so kind, Mohammed, and remind
Yes,
me on
yes.
Wednesday?
Yes, I'll remind you.
Just let me know that, to let everybody know that the exam is October 9th, and then people say, oh, I made my trip, you know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
fall break is that following week or somebody, and say, oh, I took off for the week, I took off for 2 weeks.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll remind you. All right.
You know what I mean? So this way,
Yeah.
everybody knows, they say, oh, you didn't tell me, you told me this class is online. So that way it gives us an opportunity to be together too. So we may have a couple of also other labs in that lab too, but it'll be in the
Cool.
computer lab. Okay?
Gotcha.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. Have a nice
My
day.
pleasure. You
Bye.
too.
Bye.
Okay, so let me just shut down my recordings here. Let's see here, stop sharing. And let me just stop here for Spencer to hear.